I sold my company for $43 million. I planned to celebrate with my son and his wife at the city's finest restaurant. But while they danced, a security guard leaned in and whispered, "Your son slipped something into your drink." My chest tightened, betrayed by my own child. I stood up and walked out. 20 minutes later, consequences reached him. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments what time it is where you're watching. Dad, you're destroying our future. Simon's voice cracked through my penthouse. I kept stirring his favorite Manhattan. The ice clinking steadily outside Manhattan's skyline glittered, but the room felt colder. "Simon, I've decided. HickTech will be sold in a month." The words, rehearsed for weeks, still felt unreal. 42 years of work reduced to a sentence. Simon froze, pale. "Dad, you can't. This is our family business." I handed him the drink. His hand shook. Family business, a phrase that rang hollow. He never understood the software. Ada looked up from her notepad. She'd been pretending to take notes, but I saw calculation in her eyes. "Irving, maybe reconsider," she said smoothly. But I heard the steel beneath. For years I'd watched her steer Simon. I set my glass down firmly. "I've thought about this for 3 years. The decision is final." Simon gestured wildly. "What about me? About our future? You're throwing away everything we built." "Everything I built," I corrected. He only collected paychecks. Ada's pen moved quickly. Simon slammed his glass down, splashing the rug. "This is madness. You're 65, not 90. You could run HickTech another decade." "I could, but I won't." My certainty surprised even me. Doubts I'd carried vanished tonight. "I want to travel, Simon. To see the pyramids, walk Tokyo, sit on Thai beaches without constant emails. Then hire a CEO, keep the company." Sweat formed on his brow. "And let you interfere in what you don't grasp." "No." Ada stood gracefully, notepad held close. "Irving, surely compromise is possible. Simon has worked so hard." I nearly laughed. Hard? He arrived late, left early, and filled afternoons with golf, clients indulging him only because of me. The choice is made. I meet Titus Grant tomorrow to finalize the sale. Simon's face burned red. "Grant? You're selling to Grant Tech, our biggest rival. They're offering $43 million in cash." The number felt like freedom. Enough to live fully. Simon sank into the chair, head in hands. "You're ruining everything." But I felt lighter than I had in decades. The burden of managing Simon's incompetence lifted like unlocked chains. Ada rested a hand on his shoulder, eyes fixed coldly on me. "When is this happening?" "Next month. The paperwork's already begun." For a second, something sharp flickered across her face, then vanished. The night pressed on, heavy with silence. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Inside, endings loomed. Simon lifted his head, his eyes sharper now. "Wait, let me think." He paced slowly. "Maybe we hire a manager, or make me a partner." I stayed seated, ice swirling in my glass. "Simon, you're not ready to run even sales." His jaw tightened. "Then teach me. Give me 6 months. You've had 12 years. Ada's pen scratched across her pad, plotting something unseen. Simon stopped pacing. "What if I buy you out over time?" "With what money? Your salary?" His face reddened. "I'll get investors, a bank loan, something." I leaned back in my chair, leather warm against me. "Simon, you owe $17,000 on credit cards. Your mortgage is underwater. What investor would hand you $43 million? The silence was crushing. Even Ada stopped writing. Simon slumped, shoulders falling. The fight drained out of him like air from a punctured balloon. "All right, Dad." His voice was quiet now, defeated. "If this is your final choice, I respect it." The words sounded hollow, practiced, though I wanted to believe them. "That's right, son. It's time for us all to move on." I stood and walked to the bar, pouring myself a scotch, 2 cubes of ice clinking softly. "You'll be fine, Simon. Both of you will. The sale includes severance for all employees. You'll have time to adjust." Ada closed her notepad with a faint snap. "Of course, Irving, we understand. but something in her tone made me glance up. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Simon moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. His reflection looked ghost-like in the glass. 43 million, he said quietly. That's life-changing money. It is. I plan to change mine completely. Travel, you said. The pyramids, Tokyo, among other places. I already started a list months ago. Countries I've never visited. Experiences postponed for decades while I built the company. Ada stood, smoothing her skirt. Well, this has been quite an evening. Simon, darling, perhaps we should go. Let your father rest. Simon nodded, eyes still on the window. Yeah, good idea. He came over and shook my hand. His grip was firm, but his gaze was distant. Congratulations, Dad. I hope you get everything you're looking for. The words should have lifted me, but they felt heavier, like a goodbye. Ada kissed my cheek lightly, her lips cool. Take care of yourself, Irving. This is no small decision, the biggest of my life. They gathered their things. Simon's coat, Ada's purse, her ever-present notepad tucked safely away. At the door, Simon turned once more. I love you, Dad. You know that, right? I love you too, son. The truth of it only made the moment harder. After they left, I stood alone in my living room, scotch in hand, watching the city breathe beneath me. Tomorrow, I would sit down with Titus Grant. Tomorrow, the dismantling would begin. Tonight, for the first time in months, I felt calm. The grandfather clock chimed 9. The evening was young, but I felt ready. Morning coffee steamed in my favorite mug as I sat in my office, surrounded by 4 decades of memories. Sunlight poured through the windows, warming the mahogany desk where so many decisions had been made. A photograph caught my eye. Me in 1983, 23 years old, standing before a cramped Brooklyn garage, crooked smile, full of dreams. Back then, $5,000 in savings, one big idea. Who would have thought that in 40 years, it would grow into $43 million? I lifted the frame, studying that younger man's face, so sure, so hungry. He had no idea what lay ahead. Failures, breakthroughs, endless nights, coding until my eyes burned. The first year was brutal. 3 projects no one wanted. Accounts nearly empty. Ramen for dinner. Sarah, God rest her, working double shifts as a nurse to keep us afloat while I chased the impossible. Then came the break. I opened a drawer and pulled out another photo. Our first real office, a basement in Queens, flickering lights, leaky pipes. That's where we created Accounting Pro. Not revolutionary, perhaps, but transformative for small businesses. Simple, affordable, powerful. The turning point came when Peterson Manufacturing's old system collapsed, wiping out 3 months of records. Desperate, they tried ours. $50,000, the first major contract. I stared at that check so long. Sarah finally carried it to the bank herself. From then, momentum built. Word spread. Accounting Pro became trusted. We expanded, hired staff, moved to better offices. By 1990, 20 employees. By 2000, over 100. The garage days felt like a distant memory. I sipped my coffee, glancing at the wall where our first $500 check still hung. Payment from a Bronx restaurant for basic inventory tracking. From $500 to $43 million. The American dream, written in numbers. But success had its cost. 70-hour weeks, missed baseball games, nights asleep at my desk. Sarah's patience never wavered, until cancer took her 5 years ago. That's when the burden grew heavier, building for family, only to see family slip away. Simon never cared for the technical side. He wanted the benefits, the money, the title, the easy role without the foundation behind it. Ida only made things worse. I still remember her at the wedding reception, literally taking notes about assets and inheritance. I picked up the latest financial reports. Hicks Solutions was solid, profitable, expanding. Clients in 37 states. Thousands of businesses running on our software. And yet, I was exhausted. Bone deep, soul deep, tired. My phone buzzed, a message from Titus Grant's office, confirming our meeting this afternoon. Mr. Hicks. Mr. Grant is looking forward to discussing the acquisition details. So am I. $43 million, enough to travel the world twice over, enough to finally live instead of just work. I walked to the window. Central Park stretched below, alive with spring joggers on paths, children playing, ducks gliding across the pond. Life was happening out there. Real life, not just boardrooms and profit margins. Simon would manage. Despite his laziness, he was clever enough. Ida wouldn't let him fail. She had too much invested. In the morning light, the decision felt right. Selling wasn't betrayal. It was freedom. I finished my coffee and gathered the documents for the meeting. Contracts, statements, valuations, the paperwork of dreams becoming real. In a few hours, I'd sit across from Titus Grant and begin the last chapter of HICTech, and the next chapter of me. The afternoon sun angled across my office, turning reports into golden patterns. Numbers that once brought sleepless nights now looked like poetry, margins, growth rates, expansion charts. 40 years building this empire. Now it was time to enjoy it. Tokyo, Paris, Tuscany. So many places left unseen. I traced routes on the world map pinned to my wall. Cherry blossoms would be blooming in Tokyo. I could walk through Ueno Park, explore temples, eat ramen at street stalls. My laptop glowed with quarterly results. Revenue up 18%. Retention 94%. Downloads above projections by 30%. HICTech had become everything I'd envisioned back in that Brooklyn garage. But the numbers felt distant now, like someone else's story. From my drawer I pulled a leather notebook. Travel planning, something I'd never allowed time for. Paris first, I wrote. The Louvre, Notre Dame, those little cafes Sarah always dreamed of. Sarah, she would have loved this moment. She'd understood the drive to build, but she also knew when enough was enough. The Tuscany section of my guide lay open beside me. Rolling hills, vineyards, stone cottages, where time slowed to the pace of wine, not Wall Street. I pictured renting a villa, learning Italian, maybe finally writing the memoir I'd delayed for decades. My phone buzzed. Grant's assistant confirming our Wednesday meeting. 2 days left. I closed the laptop firmly. HICTech's era was ending, but mine was just beginning. Standing, I stretched, feeling every year in my shoulders. 65, maybe 20 good years left. 20 years to live, not just work. A photo on my shelf caught my eye. Our first Christmas party in 1987. 12 employees crammed around a plastic tree in our Queens basement office. Sarah among them, everyone so young, so hopeful. Now we had over 200 employees, 4 offices, software running thousands of businesses, all built from code I once wrote in that cramped basement. Grant respected technology. He valued good people. I believed he would carry HICTech forward. I turned back to the window. Central Park was alive. Joggers, couples, children, life at a human pace. Tomorrow I'd review contracts. Wednesday I'd shake Titus's hand and sign papers that would change everything. Next week, I'd be free. Travel brochures scattered across my desk. Promised Kyoto temples, Bordeaux vineyards, Florence galleries, Prague museums. All within reach now. My notebook filled with itineraries, hotels, flights, 6 months of travel planned. Maybe longer if wanderlust stayed with me. For the first time in decades, I had no deadlines but my own, no staff waiting on decisions, no quarterly reports demanding attention, just an older man with new dreams, and the means to pursue them. The grandfather clock chimed 4. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough. The HICTech conference room felt different on Wednesday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, stretching shadows across the mahogany table, where I'd made so many decisions. Titus Grant arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. His handshake was firm, his presence commanding. Silver hair neat, navy suit tailored, eyes alert. "Irving, your company is exactly what Grant Tech needs to expand," he said. Voice steady, practiced. "I appreciate directness in business. I'm glad HICTech will be in reliable hands, Titus." We sat in leather chairs as my assistant brought coffee. The ritual of negotiation, familiar yet never this personal. Titus opened his briefcase, laying out thick folders, contracts, projections, transition plans, documents, turning my life's work into balance sheet numbers. Your software architecture is impressive, he noted. Clean, scalable, well documented. He'd done his homework. I respected that. 40 years of refinement, I replied. We learned from every mistake. It shows your retention rates are outstanding. The conversation flowed easily. Two professionals speaking the same language. No manipulation, no posturing. Just two businessmen reaching terms. I presented the company portfolios I'd prepared, client testimonials, growth projections, technical specs, everything organized with the precision that had defined HICTech's reputation. Your team is talented, Titus said, reviewing employee profiles. We'd like to retain most of them. They deserve stability. $43 million is a fair price for such an asset. The number still sounded unreal. $43 million, more than I could ever spend. Generous but fair. He was buying proven technology and relationships carefully built over decades. Titus smiled, the kind of smile that closed deals. It was done. Official paperwork next week. We shook hands across the table, the moment carrying the weight of a peace treaty after a long war. My assistant appeared with champagne. Dom Perignon, 2015, reserved for moments like this. The cork popped with authority. To new beginnings, Titus raised his glass. To successful partnerships, I replied. The champagne tasted like victory, crisp, clean, layered, like a good business relationship. We spent another hour covering transition details, employee contracts, client communications, technical documentation, the logistics of dismantling 40 years of construction. Painful, but necessary. Your son will be taken care of during the transition, Titus asked. His tone professional, not personal. Simon will receive the same severance as others. It's time he made his own way. Fair enough. Independence builds character. By 4 o'clock, everything was outlined, preliminary agreement signed, timelines fixed, expectations clear. Next Wednesday would bring signatures and wire transfers. Irving, it's been a pleasure. You've built something remarkable. Thank you. I'm sure you'll carry it further. When Titus left, I stayed in the conference room, looking out at Manhattan's restless streets. People rushing, deadlines, ambitions. Soon I'd join them. But differently, as a man with time to notice life beyond profit margins. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Simon, likely asking about the sale. For once I had good news. The champagne had softened me, left me generous, even hopeful about repairing family strains. That evening, signed contracts lay across my penthouse coffee table like victory flags. Final sale documents, wire confirmations, dissolution papers. The complete dismantling of my life's work, official at last. I poured a scotch and dialed Simon. Dad, how did it go? His voice was unusually bright, almost eager. Simon, it's official. HICTech is sold. Let's celebrate tonight. Bella Vista. The words felt unreal. 42 years now past tense. Congratulations, Dad. Ada will be thrilled. What time? His tone made me smile. Acceptance. Maybe even pride. 8 o'clock, terrace table, park view. We'll be there. And Dad, I'm proud of you. The warmth in his voice struck deep. How long since he'd said those words? Thank you, son. That means everything. I rang the concierge. Giuseppe. Bella Vista tonight. Terrace, park view. Something special. Of course, Mr. Hicks. Congratulations on your success. I'll arrange it. The shower washed away years of corporate tension. I dressed carefully. Navy suit, silver tie, Italian leather shoes. Tonight called for formality. In the mirror, I saw the same 65-year-old face, lined with decades of responsibility, yet lighter, unburdened. How many celebrations had I missed chasing HICTech's growth? Birthdays delayed, anniversaries canceled, time bartered for money. Sarah would have laughed at the irony. From my watch case I chose a Patek Philippe, bought to mark our first $1 million year, never worn until now. Tonight was for dormant luxuries. The evening stretched with promise. Good food, wine, family conversation unshaded by business. Central Park glowed below, couples strolling, children laughing. A life I had long observed but rarely joined. At 7:15, Giuseppe texted, Bella Vista confirmed, Prime Terrace, champagne service arranged, perfect. Simon and Ada deserved a proper celebration. Despite recent tensions, they were all I had. I glanced once more at the contracts, legal pages severing 40 years of identity. Tomorrow I'd wake retired. No staff waiting, no reports looming. Just Irving Hicks, wealthy, free, with time to remember the man I'd been before business consumed him. The air outside was cool, ideal for a walk through the park. Tonight we would toast beginnings, not endings. Bella Vista's entrance glowed with amber light. Simon and Ada waited beneath the terrace awning, backlit by lanterns. Dad, Simon's hug was firm, almost desperate. Ada kissed both cheeks, her smile polished but genuine. Irving, you look wonderful. Success suits you. The hostess guided us through the dining room to our terrace table. Manhattan shimmered below like scattered jewels. Central Park stretching into the night. To you, Dad, you deserve happiness, Simon said, voice edged with something I couldn't quite read. I took it as excitement. Glasses clinked beneath string lights swaying in the breeze. The sound was clear, celebratory. Ada ordered with ease, osso buco risotto, Caesar salads. Everything felt perfect. Cinematic, a family celebrating triumph. Irving, tell us about your travel plans. She leaned in with practiced warmth. Japan first. I've always dreamed of the cherry blossoms. The words painted vivid images. Ancient temples framed by pink petals. Quiet gardens moving at nature's pace instead of business schedules. When Sarah was alive, we'd talked often about Kyoto. Every spring she collected photographs of the philosopher's path, sunlight sifting through blooming branches. Simon fidgeted with his napkin, checking his watch. That sounds incredible, Dad. How long will you stay? 6 weeks at least. Maybe longer, if wanderlust takes hold. A jazz quartet began playing near the bar, their music drifting across the terrace like smoke. Couples swayed on the dance floor, lost in each other's arms. Darling, shall we dance? Ada asked, touching Simon's hand. He hesitated, glancing at me. Go on, I encouraged. It's been ages since I've seen you dance. They rose, moving toward the music. Simon's hand trembled slightly as it found her waist. I leaned back, sipping wine, watching them turn in slow circles. The evening felt enchanted, suspended between past achievements and future possibilities. A man in a dark suit shifted near the terrace railing, scanning the room with quiet focus. Security, I thought. High-end restaurants always employed subtle protection. Violins and saxophones wove a melody of romance and renewal. Simon and Ada looked radiant, elegant as the glittering cityscape. This, I thought, was success. Not money or accolades, but family together in beauty and peace. My orange juice sat half-finished beside my wine, ice melting in amber liquid. The restaurant's atmosphere wrapped us in warmth, soft lighting, gentle conversation, silverware clinking against china. Tomorrow I'd begin planning Japan properly. Guides, hotels, itineraries. The same meticulous preparation that built Higtech would now serve leisure. On the dance floor, Simon spun Ada gracefully. They looked happy, independent, ready to live their own lives without leaning on my company. Perhaps this transition would bring us closer. No business tensions, no legacy burdens, just family. The guard moved again, his eyes fixed on our table. Something sharpened in his posture. I barely noticed. Nothing could spoil my mood. 43 million, 42 years, and finally the freedom to live. The quartet softened its tempo. Simon and Ada glided beneath the terrace lights, their movements hypnotic. I remembered him as a boy too shy to ask girls to dance. Now he looked composed, grown. Pride swelled in me, until a shadow fell across the table. "Excuse me, sir," the man in the suit said. "I'm Mike, security for the restaurant." His face was grave. "Yes, what's the matter?" "I saw that young man pour something into your juice when you were distracted." The words struck like ice water. "What? Are you sure? That's my son." Mike's voice stayed steady. "Unfortunately, yes. Please be careful." I stared at the glass, ordinary orange juice, melting ice. The drink I'd nearly finished before Simon returned from dancing. The room tilted. Sounds distant. "You're absolutely certain?" "I watched him," Mike said. "He slipped something from a small container while you looked at the musicians." "Simon, my son, The boy I taught to ride a bike, helped through homework, supported through college. Sir, are you all right? Mike's voice pulled me back. On the dance floor, Simon held Ada close, his back to our table, their movements intimate. They had no idea their plan was uncovered. My son had tried to poison me. The truth hit like waves. Ada's careful questions, Simon's restless energy, their two perfect smiles. They had planned this. Thank you, I whispered. What should I do? Don't drink from that glass. Shall I call the police? Police. My son arrested for attempted murder. Headlines, scandal, humiliation, everything I'd built tarnished overnight. No, not yet. I need to think. Mike nodded. I'll keep watch. If you need help, signal. He stepped back toward the railing. Though I felt his attention stay locked on me, my mind raced. Confrontation meant a public scene. Police, media. Doing nothing meant accepting betrayal. Evidence. I needed evidence. Proof before accusing. My hand hovered over the juice, then froze. I couldn't drink it, but I could preserve it. The pill bottle in my jacket. Heart medication I rarely used. Quickly, I unscrewed the cap and poured some of the juice inside, steadying my hands. The bottle filled with proof of my son's betrayal. I capped it, slid it into my pocket. The rest, the decorative plant beside the table. I tipped the glass casually, as though watering leaves. Did you enjoy the music? Ada called, approaching. Beautiful. I managed, my voice calm. They reached the table, smiling, radiant. Simon pulled out her chair with steady hands, his earlier nervousness gone. Whatever he'd done, he believed it finished. I looked at them. My son, my would-be heir, my only family, my betrayer, my own son. How had I been so blind? But now I knew the truth. That was lovely, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, surprisingly calm, almost foreign to my own ears. You two danced beautifully together. The orange juice glass sat empty before me, its contents now feeding the restaurant's decorative plant, bright green leaves hiding the truth. In my jacket pocket, the pill bottle pressed against my ribs like a confession I couldn't yet speak aloud. Where's your juice, Dad? Simon asked. His tone was casual, almost lazy, but underneath it I heard something sharper. Anticipation, waiting, watching. Finished it while watching you dance, I answered, forcing a smile. Thirsty work, celebrating. For the briefest flicker, his own smile faltered. Barely a crack, but I caught it, a tremor of disappointment. He had hoped I wouldn't be sitting here still breathing. Should we order dessert? Ada's voice cut in. Too bright, too eager, forced cheer masking a storm. I pushed back my chair, standing with deliberate slowness. Actually, I think I'll call it an early evening. Long day. Final paperwork was exhausting. Both their faces changed. First confusion, then something colder, sharp as a blade. But Dad, we just got started, Simon said quickly. Rain check. I pulled my wallet free and placed $300 on the table, more than enough to cover dinner, and a generous tip. Money always silenced questions. Tonight was perfect. Thank you both. I kissed Ada's cheek, embraced Simon with arms that felt like they were moving through water, heavy and unreal. I love you both, I said, and I meant it though the words carried a weight they couldn't possibly understand. Dad, wait. Simon started to rise. Stay, finish your wine, enjoy the music. I can find my own way home. I walked away with measured steps, the kind you take at funerals. Slow, deliberate, final. Behind me, I could feel their eyes drilling into my back. The weight of $43 million meant nothing compared to the weight of a son's betrayal. Mike appeared from the shadows of the restaurant interior, his presence like a lifeline. Smart thinking with the plant, he said quietly. Evidence preserved, threat eliminated. Thank you, I whispered. You saved my life tonight. Part of the job. You all right getting home? I'll manage. Outside, the air felt different. Cooler, sharper, a new world where family ties dissolved into numbers on a balance sheet. Through the restaurant's windows, Simon and Ada leaned across the table, their heads close, the mood no longer celebratory but conspiratorial, already planning their next move, already rehearsing excuses. I cut through Central Park, footsteps echoing on empty paths. Joggers passed me, their breaths clouding in the night air, their lives ordinary. They didn't know the man walking beside them carried evidence of attempted murder in his pocket. The pill bottle rattled faintly as I adjusted my coat. Not just orange juice. Proof that the son I'd raised, educated, and loved had tried to kill me for money. $43 million. Enough to erase love, erase blood. Apartment towers along Fifth Avenue loomed overhead, lit windows glowing like fragments of lives untouched by betrayal. Families eating dinner. Parents tucking children into bed. My own penthouse waited ahead, sanctuary and prison both. Tomorrow I would decide what to do. Tonight I had only one task: survive the realization that my own child was my enemy. The decorative plant in the restaurant would wilt in days, silent testimony to the poison it had swallowed for me. Mike would remember. The lab would confirm. I had everything I needed to destroy the son who had tried to destroy me. But the harder question remained: how does a father become his child's enemy overnight? The answer pressed against me with terrible clarity. He had always been my enemy. Tonight only revealed it. The taxi's leather seat creaked as I sank back, Manhattan lights streaking past the window. The pill bottle in my pocket felt heavier with every passing block. The driver hummed to jazz radio, oblivious that his passenger had just escaped murder. My phone buzzed. Simon's name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Dad, where are you? We came back, and you were gone." His voice carried concern, but beneath it, anticipation again. A pause, like he was waiting for me to cough, collapse, confess weakness. "Sorry, Simon." I suddenly felt sick, went home. Oh, a beat of silence. Then "I hope it's nothing serious." His tone struck me like ice water. Not worry, joy, barely concealed excitement masquerading as concern. My son was hoping I would die. "Don't worry, I'll be good as new tomorrow." "You sure? Maybe you should see a doctor. You left so suddenly." He was fishing, testing the line. "Just tired, long day, final paperwork." "Oh right, the sale. Well, get some rest, Dad. Feel better." The line went dead. No "I love you," no warmth, only relief that I might not see the morning. Back at my building, the doorman greeted me with professional courtesy, words I barely heard. Life moved around me, muffled, as if behind glass. The elevator climbed silently, lifting me away from a world where sons didn't poison fathers. Inside the apartment, I locked 3 deadbolts I'd never touched before. The pill bottle came out like evidence at trial. Under the desk lamp, the orange liquid glowed, innocent as sunlight, lethal as betrayal. I placed it in my safe, beside insurance papers and stock certificates. No document in that vault carried more weight than this one. My leather chair embraced me like an old friend, but I wasn't the same man who had sat there that morning planning travels and retirement. Tonight I was planning survival, maybe justice. The phone rang again. This time I let it go to voicemail. Simon's voice filled the room. "Dad, I'm really worried about you. Call me back, okay? Ada sends her love." Ada sends her love. The woman who had coached my son through attempted murder was sending her love. I poured 3 fingers of scotch and stood at the window, staring down at the dark sweep of Central Park. Somewhere below, in a restaurant I would never return to, a decorative plant was dying in my place. Tomorrow I would find a private lab, someone discreet. Then perhaps a lawyer, one who understood inheritance law, how to protect assets from murderous heirs. For now, I let the scotch burn its way down. For now, I listened to the silence of my penthouse, broken only by the hum of the city below. Tonight, I survived my son. Tomorrow, I would decide whether to forgive, destroy, or disappear. But tonight, I would simply sit with the knowledge that my family had tried to kill me for money. The scotch burned on its way down. but not nearly as much as the truth burning in my chest. Outside, the city thrummed with its usual rhythm, people heading to late dinners, watching movies, calling relatives with genuine affection. 1,000 windows glowed with warmth and love. In those apartments, family bonds meant protection, not betrayal. To me, they meant cyanide. My reflection in the glass looked older, harsher. The man who had once celebrated business victories and boardroom triumphs had died at that restaurant table. In his place stood someone harder, someone who finally understood that blood ties dissolved the moment $43 million came into play. By morning, clarity replaced the restless fog of a sleepless night. I dressed in my Navy business suit, the one I wore for mergers, negotiations, the moments that defined empires. Today was another kind of negotiation, the one between survival and ruin. 2 phone calls set the day in motion. The first to Morrison Analytics, a laboratory that served only Manhattan's most discreet elite. The second to Harold Steinberg, the estate attorney who had guarded my assets for decades. My assistant needed only 4 words: priority appointments, no delays. Morrison Analytics occupied the 15th floor of a steel and glass tower on the Upper East Side. Inside, sterile white walls hummed faintly, with the sound of machines designed to parse truth from fiction. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison herself greeted me, her tone calm but her eyes sharp. "The sample will undergo complete toxicological analysis," she explained. "Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, the full spectrum." I handed her the pill bottle, like it was a weapon stripped from my would-be assassin. "How long for results?" 24 hours for preliminaries, 48 for full legal documentation. "Legal proceedings," I repeated softly. The words tasted metallic. "This is completely confidential, Mr. Hicks," she assured. "Attorney-client privilege extends to forensic consultants when legal action is anticipated." When I returned the following day, her verdict was delivered without hesitation. "The results are definitive. Potassium cyanide, lethal dosage." Her report was a meticulous portrait of premeditation. Graphs, formulas, concentration levels, procurement details. It left no room for doubt. My son had tried to murder me with one of the deadliest substances known to mankind. "Will this hold in court?" I asked. "Absolutely. The chain of custody is airtight." I studied the fine print. Purity levels indicating professional sourcing, dosage calculated to end a life within minutes. My son hadn't improvised, he had planned. From there I went to Midtown, where Steinberg and Associates occupied a corner suite overlooking the city. Leather-bound legal volumes lined the walls. Photographs of families smiled from silver frames, mocking me with their trust. "I need to modify my will immediately," I told Harold, skipping courtesy. "What changes?" His voice was careful, but his eyes betrayed curiosity. "Remove Simon and Ada. Everything goes to charity, specifically medical research. They value life, unlike my heirs." He raised one brow slightly, but asked no questions. Harold's gift was silence. Within hours, the documents were notarized and filed. Simon and Ada's inheritance dissolved into ash. They would inherit nothing but the knowledge of what they had lost. That evening, I made one last call. Bella Vista, answered the familiar voice of Giuseppe, the maître d'. "This is Irving Hicks. Reservation for tomorrow evening. Same table as Tuesday." "Of course, Mr. Hicks. 8 o'clock. "One more thing," I added, lowering my voice. "Ensure that the plant near our table remains exactly as it is. No replacement, no removal." A pause, then quiet understanding. "Yes, sir, it will remain undisturbed. The plant would be dead by tomorrow night. Leaves shriveled, stems brittle, silent, undeniable testimony." That night, under the glow of my desk lamp, I drafted a letter with the precision of a CEO finalizing a merger contract. "Simon and Ada, I know about the cyanide. Mike Riley witnessed your attempt. The toxicology report confirms it. My will has been changed. You are no longer my heirs. $43 million will now fund medical research instead of your comfort. You chose greed over family. Now you have neither. Irving. I sealed the letter with wax, old-fashioned finality, befitting the gravity of betrayal. Thursday arrived with the weight of destiny. The Bella Vista restaurant felt different when I entered, quieter, as though the walls themselves anticipated justice. Giuseppe himself escorted me to the terrace. The table was exactly as it had been. My seat faced the entrance. The envelope rested beside my water glass, visible and deliberate. The decorative plant at my elbow had become a corpse of leaves, brown, brittle, shriveled, proof enough to damn them. 10 minutes later they appeared. Simon in a black suit, premature morning attire. Ada in silk, the color of night. Their faces carried the relaxed glow of conspirators who believed the crime buried with the evidence. "Dad," Simon said, his surprise poorly masked. "You look well. Better than expected, you mean?" I replied. His smile faltered. They took their seats. Ada smoothed her dress with trembling fingers. Her voice carried its usual honeyed poison. "We were so worried after Tuesday. How are you feeling?" I gestured to the withered plant. "It's remarkable what poison does to living things." Their eyes followed my hand. The plant told its story in silence. "That plant," I continued conversationally, "received a special watering Tuesday night. Orange juice mixed with potassium cyanide, the same mixture you intended for me." Ada's knuckles whitened around her napkin. Simon's face drained of color, his mask cracking under the weight of truth. I lifted the envelope and placed it gently on the table between us. My voice was calm, almost judicial. "This contains everything you need to know about your failed attempt. A witness, a toxicology report, and a new will. Read it carefully." The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of withered leaves and cold justice. For the first time, Simon looked afraid. Simon's hands trembled as he accepted the envelope. His once confident fingers fumbled clumsily with the wax seal, as though the simple act of opening it required more strength than he could summon. He tore it at last, desperation written in every movement, and unfolded the letter inside. I watched him, not the paper. I wanted to see the moment, and I did. I witnessed the precise instant hope drained from his eyes, leaving behind the hollow terror of a man exposed. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly, a fish gasping for air in a world that no longer wanted him. What is this?" His voice cracked, a raw, splintered sound. Ada leaned closer, her polished nails grazing his arm, her eyes scanning the page with clinical detachment. She didn't gasp or falter. She simply absorbed the words, her face tightening as if calculating losses on a spreadsheet. For her, love had always been arithmetic. "Dad, wait," Simon stammered, eyes darting up to mine, wild and desperate. "This is all Ada. I cut him off, my voice steady, deliberate, sharper than any blade. "No more lies, Simon. Mike Riley saw you pour the cyanide. The toxicology report confirms what you attempted. You chose greed over blood, money over family." I let the silence stretch, let him feel the weight of his own choices pressing down. Then I delivered the final blow. "You wanted my 43 million. It won't be yours. Medical research will benefit from it instead. You wanted me dead, but you're the one who is dead to me." Simon lurched halfway out of his chair, panic making his movements clumsy. His tie slipped crooked against his chest, his dignity unraveling with it. "Please, Dad. I can explain. I didn't." "Goodbye, Simon. Forever." I turned. I didn't give him the mercy of eye contact. His voice rose behind me, high and cracking like a boy begging for a toy, rather than a man begging for forgiveness. The sound diminished with each step I took. He no longer had the power to hold me. At the restaurant's entrance, Giuseppe appeared, concern etched into his face. "Will you be returning, Mr. Hicks?" I paused only long enough to answer, "No, my business here is finished." The evening air struck me like a baptism, clean, honest, unpoisoned. Central Park stretched ahead, its shadows deep but straightforward. Shadows didn't lie. Shadows didn't plot against you while smiling across a dinner table. Behind me, I imagined Simon collapsing, Ada's mask of control cracking for the first time, two conspirators left to choke on the ashes of their ruined scheme. Ahead of me, the night whispered of freedom. My phone would ring before morning, calls filled with begging, threats, hollow promises. I wouldn't answer. The truth was louder than their words. $43 million had bought me more than retirement. It had bought me clarity. It had stripped away the illusion that blood is always sacred, revealing what it really was, a bond only as strong as the integrity behind it. My son had none. The city lights winked like scattered diamonds against the dark, beautiful and untouchable. I walked among them, alone but no longer vulnerable. For the first time in years, I was not a target. I was the survivor. Justice, I realized, tasted colder than revenge, but it lasted longer, and I would live long enough to savor it.